Good evening, and welcome to A Galaxy of Horror Volume 2. The Force of Others thought it unkind to start today's video without a word of warning. You are about to watch and listen to a series of stories that deal with the dark, the scary, the unkind parts of the Star Wars galaxy. I think they might thrill you. They might shock you. They might even horrify you. If you are one who scares easily, we suggest that you check the content warnings in our video and podcast description. If you are not, well then welcome to A Galaxy of Horror, Volume 2.
Halloween
Greetings, my young Jedi. I would like to welcome you to the second annual Halloween Spectacular, A Galaxy of Horror. Welcome to the Force of Others. I'm Matt Beutner.
I'm Zachary Owen Turner, and Matt Beutner, you don't look like Matt Beutner.
I look like the inverted Han Solo, at least is the hope, from the new comics, which we'll put a picture so you have any idea what I'm talking about. If you're just listening to us, I have a black shirt and a white vest. Like I said, Reverse Solo.
And I'm a Crimson Dawn Bounty Hunter.
Sick. I can see your medallion now.
Yeah, I got the little medallion down there. So I'm hunting some Han Solo. Well, welcome to a Halloween special. We had to shout out our costumes because we did dress up, and we are in audio format half the time. Welcome to our Galaxy of Horror Volume 2. We have a nice big episode planned for you guys. We're going to talk about the scariest thing in Star Wars this year, which we did it last year as well. Then we are going to talk about what movies, classic horror movies, we think would fit into the Star Wars universe, either with some tweaking or just fit right in. And then lastly, we're going to do... and then Matt is going to read some spooky... Shakespeare-esque Palpatine monologues.
Some Star Wars Shakespeare. And then lastly, we're going to do our second annual Galaxy of Horror. I have written, with the help of editing and co-writing of Kai, a choose-your-own-adventure horror one-shot that we're going to throw Matt in. Kind of D&D-esque, but where there's only two choices and... it's all scary. And no dice.
And no dice. You just choose one or another. And then we have Matt's scary story, which he wrote about a scary Frankenstein-esque Star Wars monster. And then we have a guest, or maybe two, that have been on the show before and have done their own Galaxy of Horror, something that we want to cultivate in the future. But before we get that, we're going to dive straight into the mailbag because we have a spooky Halloween mailbag. So, the cantina scene had a Halloween monsters turned into aliens. What modern Halloween costume would make a good villain? Matt, do you want me to start? Off the top of the dome?
Yeah, go for it, because I'm honestly having trouble thinking of, like, contemporary Halloween costumes.
I
know what I mean?
I think Ghostface would make a great... Star Wars with some tweaking. You know, if you took the white long face, it's already kind of, otherworldly, took that, made it a little different, and I think you could do like a spooky ghost face Star Wars alien.
Yeah. Okay, going off that same vibe, the monster demon thing from Sinister. I forget its name.
Yeah.
It's very much the same vibe, but that could definitely be a Star Wars alien, just in the background. That would be like a space ghost.
Yeah, that movie it freaks me out.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well let us know. Go ahead.
Five Nights at Freddy's. Any of those little robots could easily fit, or with some tweaking.
That could be a scary Star Wars story that could work. But let us know your favorite modern Halloween creepy things that you think could fit in Star Wars. And what kind of things that they would be. But in the meantime, hope everybody's having a happy Halloween, because this is actually going to come out, I think, on Halloween.
Yeah.
Friday is 10/31. So happy Halloween, everybody. Hope you're having a safe time and not an actually scary time. But Zach, in the meantime, before we get into all this scary stuff, how was your week and how was your Star Wars week?
Week was good. Star Wars week was good. We are gearing up for fall stuff. So yesterday got all dressed up and went and saw. So on the east side of New York, all of these buildings do some really cool decorations. Very like Christmas decorations, but Halloween. And some of them are really cool, and some of them are even too scary for me because they had clowns, baby clowns with like no eyes, like swinging on swings.
Whoa.
And I was like, that's too much. That's too much. But there's this one
Yeah.
house that we really like that has skeletons either trying to escape or break into the house, which is hilarious and fun. And they had a nice little spider one that I sent to Matt, and Matt said, "Nope, not doing it."
That's not what I said, but I appreciate the edit for the
For
show.
family-friendly listening, he said, "Nope, not doing it." And then, how Star Wars found me. I had a nice little chat with a friend about Visions and Visions Volume 3 coming out, and we're gearing up and excited for that. And that was basically it. Oh, no, the other big way that Star Wars found me is with the Leslie Headland news.
Yes.
Which we were not going to talk a bunch about news.
Well, no,
but
we can get
holy
into
crap,
it just
we
a
gotta
little
talk about
bit.
this.
I mean,
yeah,
Go ahead.
She said that Kemir, or otherwise known as the Stranger, was supposed to end up being the first knight of Ren. Was in the plans for season 2, and that is just wild news.
Yeah, she said that the design. It's what we talked about in our first episode of this podcast. That the silhouette of the helmet for the Stranger for Kemir is exactly the same as the silhouette of Kylo Ren. She talked about how that's kind of the design they landed on. And because of the rule of 2, they're only being able to be 2 Sith at a time, and that they were going to introduce Plagueis, that they were probably eventually going to go with Kemir being the first Knight of Ren. And that's something you called out in the first episode that I pushed back on, that there's Kylo Ren's theme at the end of the 5th episode, and I pushed back. I was like, yeah, you also hear kind of Kylo Ren's theme type thing in Star Wars Episode 1, and it's like not intentional. So I didn't think there was anything to that, and I was wrong. They were definitely, they kind of decided, sounds like it was by happenstance, that it wasn't necessarily planned, but as they got there with the helmet, she started to think about it, she's like, that could be an interesting way to go. But yeah.
Especially if you don't want to kill your character that you start loving, you know?
Yeah. Or you do, but he starts his own sect of Force users. And worth mentioning that in the modern, in canon comics, both Kira and Darth Vader have mentioned that the Knights of Ren, even by the time of the original trilogy, have fallen off drastically from how dangerous they used to be. So they used to be this threat. And as we all talked about with the Acolyte, the Jedi are, they've said there haven't been a Sith in 1,000 years. That doesn't mean there hasn't been a different dark side cult or dark side sect that they were fighting. And people will say that's like splitting hairs, but Legends did it too. But yeah, that news found me as well, and I was hoping you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. And maybe we'll get a First Knight of Ren show. Maybe that's how we move on. I don't know. I feel like with all of these things just being released, Ben Solo movie and all of that just like being thrown here and there, I feel like people are pulling Ryan Reynolds left and right and being like, well, maybe I can get my show back if I just mention this little nugget.
Well, my biggest prediction that I was thinking about with the Acolyte, a way that I think it could very likely, some of those story threads continue eventually, lest we forget, Charles Soule was a producer on the Acolyte. He might have been an executive producer or a story consultant or something, but he was involved. And Charles Soule actively currently writing the Ben Solo comic book. Very, very likely, in my opinion, that if anything happens, we're going to get a Kemir comic.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Or just an Acolyte Season 2 in comic book form. Like, let the story live,
I don't know. I don't
think it'll happen, but...
I think that, unfortunately, there are just as many Star Wars fans that are happy that the Acolyte isn't around anymore. Which is unfortunate. But, as for my week, wildly busy. Second weekend of Young Frankenstein. We got 2 more to come see that. Come see me and friend of the podcast, Brian Lawson, and friend of the podcast, Rocky Westbrook, backstage. And I am coming to you live, sleep-deprived and sleepy, because last night we had auditions for Christmas Carol, the show that I wrote, which is what we're doing at Christmas time. and I've got callbacks for that on Wednesday. All that to say, I am a very, very, very busy little man, and I wrote my Halloween story this morning because that was the first time that I had time.
He's a writer, folks.
Yeah, well, I literally texted Zach as I went to bed. I was like, I don't think I'm going to have anything. I haven't had a moment. And I passed out. And then I woke up and I was like, okay, I'm going to write a weird stream of consciousness Dr. Frankenstein story in Star Wars. But we'll get to that later. So then my Star Wars week, I am currently listening to The Last Order by Kwame Mbalia, which is the novel about Finn and Janna. And it was sold, otherwise marketed, as a post-Rise of Skywalker story, and it is not that. It is not that. It is, I'm listening to it on Audible. Audible not a sponsor, but you could be. And this story begins with like a chapter post-Rise of Skywalker, and then is Finn and Janna Stormtrooper flashbacks. And listening to other reviews, that's basically what this story is. So it's more,
context.
It's more context, which is the way canon works right now. A novel isn't going to take a big swing. It's going to give you context so that other things are free to take big swings. But it's a good read, very well written, just not really what it was marketed as. And then the other way that Star Wars found me was there was more Ben Solo news, kind of what Zach alluded to earlier, that apparently there was a set budget. They had plans for production. The script was finished, and casting was about to begin, and Disney pulled the plug. The other big rumor that I've heard that hasn't gone everywhere, but I think it's because it's boring and nitty-gritty. Bob Iger doesn't want to be the head of Disney forever, and there was a rumor going around that it was kind of a political thing, that he didn't want to greenlight another big Star Wars movie as he's on the way out. He wants whoever the next person is to be able to do that type of thing. But I don't think this is a Ryan Reynolds Deadpool thing. If you want this movie to happen, fans, keep going, keep pushing.
Yeah,
the hero.
There's a sign in Times Square. Somebody did a video, like took over one of the videos for it.
And somebody flew over Lucasfilm headquarters for like an afternoon with a big sign, "Save the Hunt for Ben Solo." Somebody put up Ben Solo missing posters out around Lucasfilm headquarters. So everybody's doing everything they can, and that's the only thing you could do to try and make it happen. But for Adam Driver and Steven Soderbergh to be this open about it, that means that NDAs aren't a thing for it anymore. And the movie is dead, done, finished. Gonna take a wild thing to happen. And if it did, they probably wouldn't announce it for quite some time.
Yeah.
But we can try. And it's very scary when things get canceled. But speaking of scary things, Zach, out of the new Star Wars content that came out in 2025, what is the scariest Star Wars thing that you saw this past year?
So I was thinking about this, and I was like, do I want to go with the real answer or the fun answer? Because the real answer is all of Gorman.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
But it's like scary in a real world way that is not fun at all. Like, it's fun, like, it's great, it's well written.
Sure.
It's a very good show. But it's like this is a little too real. So I'm going to go with when the kids go on the ship in Skeleton Crew and find all of the spooky, scary skeletons, and there's the robot. That's going to be my answer, because I want a little brightness to this episode, because I wrote something very dark later.
Well, I did too, and unfortunate. So, my answer is the Spiders in Caravan of Courage. Just kidding. Honorable mention, also from Skeleton Crew. It's more like creepy and unnerving than scary, but the scene from the second to last episode where Jude Law finally opens the crate of gold and it's just kind of washing down all over him, and it's just the creepy, unnerving joy that he gets at riches and how much he cares about that more than other people. It's like, rewatch the scene. It's a really good performance, and it's quite creepy. But I did go dark, and it's the Gorman Massacre. It's just so terrifying. For now, caveat, have not read Cavan Scott's Tales from the Nightlands from this
Not
year.
yet.
And, I will. And I haven't been keeping up with the, Legacy of Vader comics. I was close to saying when Kylo Ren, sees Vader in a vision. And Vader basically just, like, dubs him not worthy. It's like, dog, you suck. And, whatever. It's very as he's slaughtering a room full of people. Quite scary, but I do need to go dark, and it's the Gorman Massacre.
Yeah.
Very scary.
Some scary.
Very scary, very emotional.
Very scary.
But back to maybe some fun, some silly. So I've got movies that could work in Star Wars. Yeah. I've got one that it's just you could very easily port at it as is and say it's somewhere in Star Wars and it works. And I guarantee you we have the same one because it's a really obvious one. And then I've got one that with just some very simple, not simple, but with some setting changes, absolutely plays.
Yeah.
But Zach,
I have one that again could be ported like almost exactly into it, and then I have two ideas for a fun one, which might be setting myself up for Galaxy Horror Volume 3, and then I have an honorable mention.
Cool. All right.
So,
well, hit your easy port, I guess.
Easy port. It's Alien.
I was gonna say, what's the easy
Alien,
one, and
right?
why is it Alien? The only thing that doesn't work. I mean, Roger Christian, creator of the lightsaber, one of the production designers in Star Wars Episode 4, also the production designer on Alien. So the used universe feel is him as much as it's George, right? The only things you have to change in Alien, I think they mention Earth twice. But outside of that, it totally plays. That can just be a one-off thing. And xenomorphs could work in Star Wars. Absolutely.
I mean, they kind of have already put them in that comic as well.
Yeah, that's what Atha Prime is in the Jedi Knight comic. And they referenced Alien very hard in one of the season 3 Bad Batch episodes. Entombed, I think. No, wrong episode. But either way, there's a cloned Zillo beast, and in its early form, it's a xenomorph. It's straight up a xenomorph. So Alien, big Star Wars sci-fi feel. But what are your?
You could even throw a Jedi in there, and just to make it a little bit more fun. But it's still gonna be scary. What is your?
Xenomorph.
We'll go with you. What is your first, port in?
Oh, I only got one.
I only got one, so maybe I'll go.
Yeah,
and then
go ahead,
you'll
go ahead.
and then I'll finish. Yeah. I want to do a Freddy Krueger, but change it up. Have it be Palpatine invading the dreams of the Jedi, much like he does with Anakin. You could either set it in. Either early, right before Episode 1, or you could have it be during the Clone Wars. But Palpatine and Plagueis invade the dreams of prominent Jedi, making them paranoid and on missions infect their minds, causing accidents to happen. The Jedi eventually win by everyone on the High Council going to sleep in the Council Room and having an epic dream lightsaber fight where Force powers can be cranked up to 11, a la the Genndy Clone Wars. Jedi are able to take out swaths of droids and nether Force ghosts. Cool.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. I think it'd be cool, it's just some other random nerd news. The director of Freddy Krueger wants Jim Carrey to be the next Freddy Krueger. I was like, give us Jim Carrey as Papa Palpatine or Plagueis. You know?
Whoa.
Really?
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's an interesting choice. But yeah,
when he goes dark, he goes dark.
Oh, he goes very scary.
Yeah.
Number 23. But yeah, sometimes comedians can make good scares. That works. Okay. So not an original pitch, but my movie that I think you could very easily port into Star Wars, and this isn't just because it has a Star Wars actor in the lead role, but Dr. Sleep.
Oh, cool.
Sequel to The Shining. It's a sequel to The Shining book and movie. First off, highly recommend this movie if you haven't seen it, even if you don't like scary movies. There's some uncomfortable violence against children. I will say that's my warning. But outside of that scene, and none of it is gory. But it is one of my favorite scary movies ever. It's so good. Yeah. Sequel to The Shining book and movie. The elevator pitch. Danny Torrance, the kid from The Shining, has grown up and lost his way. He's a drunk. He's experiencing homelessness. Yada yada. Finds his way as a helper in kind of a hospice center, helping people die peacefully using his kind of psychic powers, right? He ends up getting swept up in an adventure against Rose the Hat and the True Knot, which is a group of psychics that have gained minor immortality by killing and eating other psychic children. So it's pretty dark. But this could easily be a Star Wars spinoff. What I just said, all those powers could be Force powers.
Yeah.
Just not Jedi. right? Mind reading, mind control, telekinesis, possession. They basically force project themselves across the country into each other's minds and stuff. There could absolutely be a cult of Force users that feed on Force-sensitive children to try and live forever. And your main character could be one of those kids on the run. And, yeah. So there you go. Dr. Sleep could totally be a Star Wars movie.
Yeah. Well, we must be best friends because my next one is The Shining.
Yeah!
It's the original Shining. I think the original Shining could really play, but you have, instead of like a physical location, you have it be a Star Cruiser. A Star Cruiser yacht that's either needs to go in for repairs or something, but like basically where it's like a long journey, just you and the family, and the shine becomes the Force, and I think if it's a ship, maybe it's transporting a Sith artifact or something like that, and that's what slowly infects, here's Johnny. And then my honorable mention is Ghostbusters. I think it'd take a lot of tweets, but I'd love to see like a crew of like monster fighting, ghost fighting.
Oh my gosh!
Star Wars.
Monster fighting, ghost fighting, Star Wars. That's awesome. That's wild. The Shining and Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, I mean it's easy. I mean, like when you do The Shine, you're like, yeah.
Maybe that's what we've got to write for Galaxy of Horror 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, real quick, I'm going to costume change before I do Star Wars Shakespeare. Excerpt from Ian Dosher's The Jedi Doth Return.
Young fool, 'tis only now in this thy final living moment that thou dost comprehend thy folly and my might. Thy feeble skills are nothing when compared to all the power of the dark side. Thou dost pay the rightful price for thy severe and utter lack of vision. Aye, thy debt is due, and I am both thy creditor and thy collector, too. What thou hast not repaid with thy belief, I shall exact from thine own flesh. And oh, what joy it brings to charge thee thus, my payment justly earned, to wound thee, hurt thee, break thee, and at the last to bring thee to the death that I am owed.
You get it. And they say quick change skills don't come in handy. But yeah, I don't know, I thought that'd be fun for this time of year. A little Star Wars Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Perhaps
next year maybe we'll do a little one of the prequels, or
Yeah, it's from Ian Dosher's Star Wars Shakespeare books. Highly recommend them if you're a Star Wars nerd and a Shakespeare nerd, which is a Venn diagram that does exist, but it's around. I don't know, maybe we'll do a scene from the prequels next year. Did you ever hear?
Yeah. Hast thou ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Or, what have you. But, okay, so now we're moving into the title.
Galaxy of Horror.
Galaxy of Horror.
So, Zach, do you want to do your Choose Your Own Adventure first?
Yeah, I think we should do it. It's gonna take... Yeah, well, you'll need it. All right. I am not going to tell you anything about it because you're just going to have to go in with blind eyes, and I will look to you to make certain choices throughout the time I read this. Kids, buckle up. It is quite scary, if I do say so myself. But without further ado, a blood-filled gurgle of a scream escapes out of Bute's chest. He is frozen, mouth agape in horror. Beutner abruptly awakes from a nightmare, breathing heavily. Sweat clings to his body. His eyes frantically trace his surroundings as he realizes he is still in his sleep cabin. Another night of horrible dreams. Darkness and stench still fill his nostril, as if they were as real as the room around him. The room is small. Dim blue lights glow along the walls, dimly illuminating his single-sized bed with the storage space below. The adjacent wall barely fits a compact desk and 2 locker-style closets. One locker is large enough for 3 to 4 sets of coveralls and a few personal items he brought from his home planet. The other hides a washbowl sink and a weathered mirror. Sheer exhaustion would normally be relieving enough to be in his bed in this room, but the claustrophobia from his dreams still sit heavy on his chest. The faster he gets out of the bed, the better. Butte clumsily swings his legs over the edge of his mattress. A sharp pain shoots between his eyes as flashes of the nightmare continue to cross his mind, and a headache begins, a dull throb behind his eyes. He leans over to open his locker and turns the knob worn with limescale. Metallic scented water spurts from the faucet into the slightly stained ceramic bowl. He fills his hands to splash his face. The water is not cold enough to stop his sweat as it drips down his forehead. He squints into a mirror. And your first choice, is Butte a human, a Chadrafan, or a Shistavinian?
A Shistavinian.
Yes, if you don't know, dear listener, Shistavinian
Wolfman.
is Wolfman. A hardly recognizable Shistavinian squints back at him. He quickly rubs his hands over a head full of scruff one could barely call hair, napped and disheveled from a terror-fueled sleep. Sharp but round eyes sink into flesh discolored from exhaustion. Only being at this job for 2 weeks is not enough time to get used to the hard corporate-issued bed, if getting used to it could even be possible. A vibration sets off the device shackled to his wrist. Can't be late, he murmurs, slapping his cheeks hard to wake up. Just outside one of the 2 doors leading to his room, the others are waking up. Doors slamming, crude humor echoes down the metal-lined halls, laughter as the night shift crew returns to their own cabins. Some bang on doors to jolt sleeping crewmen awake. The other door to Butte's room leads to a shared shower and toilet. Zachary, a Davaronian, who's been working here for 2 years, knocks slightly on the door 4 times, with a slight pause after the 3rd knock. Their shared signal that the shower is empty and ready to be used. "All yours, bud," he says. Zek is courteous, helping Butte get acclimated to the job and the lifestyle here. If friends are possible here, Butte takes a momentary comfort in the idea that Zek may be one. The corridor connecting all of the rooms leads to the mess hall. Butte, feeling a familiar grumble in his stomach, has to decide quickly if a shower will clear his head from the night terrors or if he should grab a meal before they are all gone. It's the only meal he will get for the day, yet the visions from the night have him shaken. A shower might really clear his head for the long day before him. Which do you choose? A, shower, or B, head to the mess hall to eat?
Let's eat.
All right. Butte decides he can shower later. A headache pounds between his eyes. He figures food can fix it faster than the shower. And considering Zek slept in a bit too, he hopes Zek can appreciate the favor of showering first. Butte shoves his limbs through a clean jumpsuit. Clean, a roughly relative term, as he notices the white of the jumpsuit is already stained with patches of green. He groggily steps into the hall to join the others on the way to the mess hall. The mess hall is filling fast. Bright lights flicker over a few hundred tables as some late-night crew linger to catch up with buddies assigned from the morning shift. They exchange gossip and cigars, a weakly rolled piece of paper containing scrappings from their tools. Butte looks towards the food hall. Joining the line, Butte quickly realizes he has the chance at grabbing a full ration of food for a change and scans the tables looking for a place to sit. His head pounds as his stomach twists inside him. Through the lines of workers hoping to get breakfast, Butte flashes a grin at the tables across the mess hall. Zachary, somehow ready before Butte as always, beckons him with a wave to join him. As Butte slides onto the bench, Zach asks between mouthfuls of food, "Beastie's got you in your sleep again, kid?" Butte doesn't respond. He eats quickly. Another zap, stronger than the last, stings his wrist. Zek's wrist also gets a jolt. "Well, time to get to it. You might want to grab some calf before you head in. You look like poodoo." Zek deposits his tray in the bin, grabbing his gear, a helmet, a respirator, hung on the wall nearby. Butte questions how Zek can move so fast in the mornings. Zek grins slyly and waves back to Butte before disappearing into the hall. Butte thinks to himself a little calf might help the residual headache and lack of sleep. He heads to the small cafe bar in the corner of the mess. A small pot sits on a warmer filled with brown sludge that barely passes for calf. It tastes terrible, but it does the job. To the right of the calf pot are a few packets of steeping leaves. Pickings are slim. Many of the workers would rather hell than the goo boiling in the pot. Butte grunts quietest. Only decaf mint leaves are left. Does Butte A, drink the cup of coffee, or B, have the mint steeping leaves?
The leaves.
Great. Butte thinks the mud is too much for his stomachs today. He shoves the steeping leaves into a quick cup, a device that heats the leaves rapidly, dispensing mint essence into the chamber of the warm water attached beneath. Unfortunately, his head starts to pound again, but it's nothing compared to what will happen if he reports to his station any later. He runs to the PPE wall, a few rooms away from the mess hall, massaging his temples hastily. After suiting up, he carries his helmet in the crook of his arm, and he jogs from the room. Rushing, blinded by his headache, Butte yawns wide as his pace quickens. He doesn't see a puddle of water in his path. His foot slips through the water fast, sliding as his legs contort into splits. His head hits the cold floor with a loud crack, denting his skull. As unconsciousness creeps across his eyes, an unimaginable pain fills his body, and his eyes flutter closed. Immediately, the monsters from his dream fill his vision, as he feels them tear him limb from limb. Butte's eyes shoot open. He must have nodded off, looking at the calf and the steeping leaves. The leaves are unaffiliated. Better to take the risk of the calf. The calf hits Butte's stomach like a rock, but damned if he isn't awake. He feels the familiar flow of adrenaline jolt his limbs awake. The headache wanes, becoming nothing compared to what will happen if he reports to his station any later. He runs to the PPE wall a few rooms away from the mess hall, grabs gloves and a helmet and respirator before following Zek, who is meters ahead outside and on his way to the lift. The corridor from the mess hall leads to the larger operation of Damask Holdings' efforts on this new planet.
Okay.
Outside, as workers file into tightly grouped lines, plasteel grate walkways sway on their platforms over the jagged green and orange-tinted rock. The lamps above flicker on and off as Butte gets in line. Butte arrives late to a line already full. Zek is closer to the front, waiting for his orders. The workers here come from many planets all across the near-distant galaxy. Some brought from even further. All are dressed in the same white jumpsuits as Butte. "Nar!" An angry yell echoes through over the line. Orzval, the basilisk foreman of the morning crew, pushes through the line towards Butte. With one of her large, meaty fingers pointed directly into Butte's face, she barks, "You're late! I will not be behind schedule because you needed your beauty sleep." Two of her other hands are busy checking things off on a datapad, while the third rests on her hip. Butte holds himself back from the disgust in his throat, especially on a day like today. He hates Orzval more than anyone here. She could care less about her workers and only prioritizes results from the company. "We got new orders from headquarters," Orzval shouts, turning to the rest of the line. "Deeper! We gotta dig deeper in area E10. She turns her head back to Butte with a snarl. "Beutner here has just volunteered to lead the new expedition. I need 3 other volunteers," she says, raising her fingers to begin selecting workers from the crowd. Zek sighs and raises his hand reluctantly as he pushes through the line and to stand near Butte. He looks at Butte with a smirk to quickly hide his frustration. Butte knows Zek does not want to go deeper underground, but Zek could not allow his friend to go alone. Orzval shouts the name of 2 other workers. "Gendy, Lochnu, you're in." Gendy, a tan-skinned Ithorian who's been working here longer than almost anyone, shoves forward towards the lift entrance in response, followed by Lochnu, a green-skinned Twi'lek who'd often been kind to Butte. "Okay," Orzval says. "We have our 4 brave warriors headed into the dark. The rest of you get to finishing areas A5 and B10. As the lift doors slide open, the last few of the night crew shuffle off. Butte overhears 2 Duros brothers, Rigger and Bolt, talking in hushed tones as they walk by. "I'm telling you, I heard something," Rigger hisses. "You're always hearing stuff," Bolt quips back. "They were scratching behind that wall. I know something was there," Rigger replies, louder this time. You're just being paranoid. Leg off the cigaras." Bolt shoves Rigger's shoulder to scoot him forward. Does Butte A ask the brothers about the area and risk another volt to his wrist, or B hurriedly get to the lift?
I have a clarification question. Did you say what planet we're on?
Nope.
Dang it. I'm going to ask the Duros about what they heard.
All right. Butte turns quickly, whispering their way. "Hey, what area are you talking about?" "E10, Rigger responds. "The new area." Bolt grabs Rigger's shoulder to pull him along. He's always spooked by the dark ever since we were young. As I said, too many cigaras. This place is making him paranoid. A jolt of electricity snaps Bute's attention. His fingers start to burn. By the lift, he sees Orzval pushing a button on her datapad. "Let's go!" she yells. Butte waves to the Duros brothers and runs to join the rest of the crew before the grated door slams shut. Large metal doors slide closed with a whoosh of air, sealing the pressure from the outside world. The lift shudders into its descent. Butte feels his ears pop as the lift speeds lower and lower into the shaft. Lifts for newer levels tend to be smaller, large enough to haul equipment down or various sized workers who are paired into small groups to minimize casualties if something goes wrong. This means the work is slower and harder. It is not uncommon for workers in this stage to return injured, or not return at all. Butte feels Orzval's sweat on his arm as he can smell the mixture of sweat and grime on her skin. Hot air from the hammerhead's side mouth pushes sweat down the back of Butte's neck. Suddenly, a large bang reverberates through the metal of the lift from above their heads. The lift jolts to a stop. The screen above the button panel shows the lift is halfway between levels D and E. Orzval presses the E button again. The lift shakes and whirs, but does not move. Orzval clicks on her comm. "This is Foreman Orzval. We're on lift 67 and jammed between levels D and E. Please advise." "We hear you, Orzval. Hover droids are now deployed. Could take an hour to get to you, though." The operator replies from the headquarters. "Quiff!" Orzval curses as she turns to the group. "There's an emergency hatch. One of you go look. We can't get behind schedule." Butte looks up towards the hatch, realizing its small size. Orzval, Zek, and Gendy are way too big to fit through. Butte and Loch Nu exchange glances as Loch Nu says, "I guess it's either you or me. What do you want to do?" Does Butte A, go through the hatch, or B, ask Loch Nu to go?
Loch Nu's going. Loch Nu's going. Loch Nu's going.
Butte says, "Loch Nu's going." No, Butte says, "You better go. You're more agile." Gendy pushes Loch Nu up towards the emergency latch. Loch Nu struggles to crank it open until eventually the air seal breaks. Cool air rushes in. Butte finds momentarily relief as it surrounds them. Loch Nu disappears onto the roof of the lift swiftly. Their boots shift the metal on the ceiling. After a moment, they hear them shout, "We're still really high up. I can't see anything." Orzval pushes the E button, and the lift shakes. Zek shoots her a dirty look. A loud skittering sound fills the air of the shaft, and Butte pushes forward to try to catch a glimpse of anything through the open hatch.
No, he doesn't.
What was that? Loch Nu shouts as the lift begins to sway slightly. It's quiet again until something clangs and echoes through the shaft as something smashes across the walls around them. The lift lurches, and Orzval immediately smashes the E button again. "Loch?" Gendy calls up. It's eerily quiet for a moment as the lift begins to descend. Zek pushes past Butte to raise his arm towards the hatch. Loch Nu's hand reaches from the darkness to grasp his open hand. Zek pulls them through the hatch into his arms. "A rock fell into the gears of the lift," Loch Nu said, winded from trying to crawl across the roof of a lift in motion. Butte seethes with silent anger at Orzval. Orzval's comm clicks. "Foreman, be advised, the night crew's missing one worker from E-level, 54-year-old human male, named Bowden, last seen in the caverns." "Copy, we'll keep an eye out for him." Orzval clicks off the comm. "If we get ahead of schedule," she snaps as she looks towards the other. Butte snaps back. "If we get ahead of schedule?" Orzval doesn't even bother to look in his direction as she rants. "You heard me. He's probably was slacking off, napping. I don't have time for slackers." "But what if he's hurt?" Butte argues. "I suppose he will be easier to find that way," she grunts. Butte feels Zek's hand on his shoulder as he shakes his head to keep him from saying anything more. The lift lurches to a halt at level E. The doors slide open to reveal a small cavern. Green stone glints softly into all directions, illuminating from dome-shaped lamps embedded into the rock. A vault-like door at the far end of the cavern separates the crew from the haulage way ahead. These tunnels are used for transporting materials, equipment, and personnel ahead to the new areas. A generator hums to the right of the doors. Wires lead through the designated ports into the haulage ways beyond the door. These cords power lights and the carts that the crew will load full of larger nodes of spice to be shipped to refinement in the factories above the mines. The adjacent corner holds racks full of mining equipment, handheld lanterns, vibroblade daggers, pickaxes, jackhammers, and hover carts. The crew begins to load their arms and packs full of equipment while Orzval barks orders. Zek grabs a jackhammer, Butte a pickaxe and vibroblade, and the others two grab wall lanterns and cables for install in the marked areas they will extract from.
Can I grab a handheld nuclear bomb?
There's no nuclear bombs.
Okay.
Orzval repeats her orders. You know the drill. We set up the lamps, drill the prospects the night crew has marked to find those spice veins. I'll survey to mark new prospect points for the next crew. Everyone wear your respirators. I don't need you getting high off the spice. Orzval pulls a key card from her belt and touches it to the keypad on the right side of the door, opening the internal locks and releasing the pressure seal. The doors hum as they slide open. Butte notices the crank attached to the left side of the doors, a backup system in case the power runs out. A gush of air almost pulls Butte through the doors as they separate. Lights flicker on into the darkness. A scream fills the air as a small human man runs through the doors. His jumpsuit is stained and scuffed where he had fallen and dragged himself through the darkness, soaked with sweat. His hair is matted to his head as his eyes are wild red with fear and spice. They left me! Help! I could hear them, moving in the dark! Orzval grabs the man with her 4 large arms and shakes him to a stop. Pull yourself together, man, she yells at him. He starts weeping into her arms. She uses one hand to activate her comms. This is Foreman Orzval on Level E. I think we found you, man. I'm gonna send him up to the lift now. He's got no respirator. Must be high as hell. Copy. We'll have a medical droid on standby. She slaps Bowden across the face. Now you listen to me. I'm gonna put you on that lift up to home base. You're not gonna grab or do anything until they receive you. And if you put me behind schedule anymore, I'm gonna tear you limb from limb. Bowden's head lulls back from exhaustion as Orzval grabs him by his shirt collar to hoist him to his feet. Once on the lift, Bowden collapses into himself as the doors close. Orzval calls for the second lift before turning to the group. We found the man, let's get to work. Shouldn't we be concerned? Butte asks. He was sleeping on the job, no mask, and now he's high. Medical will take care of him, Orzval snaps back. Lochnu speaks up as well. Someone really should have gone with him. Orzval pushes past the group to the entrance of the catacombs. And put me behind schedule? Not a chance. The doors slide shut behind them, and the air stills. Orzval locks the doors in place with her keycard once more. The active lights lead through a series of turns, marking the areas E1 through 9 are scribbled onto the wall. The crew walks in mostly silence, save for a few remarks from Orzval to press further or change direction. The air is surprisingly moist. The cold air sends goosebumps across Butte's body. It stings his nostrils, even through the respirator. Light above them begins to flicker as the cables that power them come to an end. Gendy steps past Zek to drop the load of cables he is carrying. Boxes full of lamps and supplies left from the night before line the wall in front of them. A large cart sits empty at the end of the mine track. Orzval punches coordinates into her datapad before bellowing her instructions about light placements, quotas, and strike zones. Butte grabs a power line and starts to connect brighter lamps into the capped power cord. The crew will carry these with them, using the cords of the handheld lamps to trace their ways back to the area. He pauses momentarily to lean his ear to the wall to listen for any sounds, but hears nothing abnormal. He stands, mocking himself in his head. Of course he heard nothing. The walls are solid rock and spice. However, he can't shake the feeling that something is off about this area. Something is different and not like the other areas he has worked before. He breathes deeper into his respirator to sniff the air. Butte recognizes the machine oil from the tools. The respirator barely dampens the tinge of the spice, which Orzval surely expects him to identify quickly. He picks up something else, though, just barely masked by the muck of stench coming from the foreman. He smells something he can't place, something he's never smelt before. It reminds him of hunted game and the remains left behind to scavengers in the woods of his home planet. Butte realizes the rest of the crew are waiting on him and snaps himself out of his mind to make sure the lamps are stable before turning on the power. The cavern lights up, hints of green and orange, as it weaves through the gray bedrock. Butte raises his light as he moves forward past the tools carts to reveal 4 separate access points carved by the crewmen before them. At this stage, the crew will continue to drill into the bedrock until they can locate a large enough vein for extraction. Area E was discovered following a vein that abruptly ended with a collapse into the caverns Butte's crew enter from the lift. Since its discovery, only a small pockets of spice have been uncovered. The company believes there are larger veins separated by bedrock that had shifted in the past due to the quakes on the planet. Many of the crew don't think there is spice this deep, but they have no choice when it comes to doing the work.
Perfect. One for each of you, Orzval snorts. Lochnu, take the farthest to the left. Zek, Gendy will have the middle 2. Butte, I assume you are dumb enough to understand which one is left for you.
Orzval walks out of the cavern into the direction they came from and out of sight from the crew. Butte knows she's going to smoke a cigar confiscated from one of the crewmen dumb enough to smoke it within her sight. Gendy and Lochnu gather their supplies and quickly disappear into their respective access points. Lochnu shouts back,
First one to strike spice gets 20 credits.
Zek begins to walk towards the entrance of his access point. Butte jogs to Zek's side and grabs his shoulder to stop him. Something's off here, man. Be careful in there. Zek's eyes crinkle into what is surely a smirk and pats Butte's shoulder in reassurance as he replies, I will. I'll see you at break time. Let's get this over with so we can get the hell out of here. Before ducking into the darkness. Butte stares after him, watching his lamplight slowly fade as Zek moves further into the mine. Alone in the cavern, Butte raises his light above his head and realizes there are no booms stabilizing the ceiling. He shudders before proceeding into the dark of the last passageway. Butte doesn't need to walk far before he sees the neon chalk markings of the last spot the previous crew member stopped drilling. Butte sets his lamp at his feet and lifts the pickaxe from behind his back and begins to swing the tip of his axe into the marking with full force. The bedrock chips away in chunks and shards as metal ignite into bursts of light with each strike. Time in the mines is non-existent, and Butte jumps as his lamp falls forward from a tug at the end of the cord, dragging his lamp backwards. Orzval is signaling it's time to check in for quota. Butte emerges first, which means his access point must be the shortest of the others. Shortly after he enters the cavern, Zek, Lochnu, and Gendy appear from theirs. They gather around the cart and lean against it. Zek grabs a small box from one of the containers along the wall full of canteens of hydration fluid, tosses one to Butte before handing the box to Gendy. They each take a moment to catch their breath and drink before realizing Orzval isn't in the chamber with them. Butte assumes Orzval is hiding another smoke session and begins to make small talk with the others. Did anyone hear any strange sounds? Butte asks.
What do you mean?
Lochnu responds. I heard some of the night crew talk about sounds behind the walls in this area. Butte kind of whispers as he puts his hand behind his head sheepishly. He knows it's a silly question. Zek chimes in. I can't hear anything over my jackhammer. I haven't heard anything either, Gendy says, shrugging. Lochnu tosses their hydration bottle into the cart before saying, I heard some hollowness in the wall. The rock is getting softer, but it's not moist. There's a bit of spice flaking out, but nothing substantial. I think there's another cavern back there. A shock shoots into all of their wrists. Orzval is at the entrance of the cave, pressing a button on her datapad.
That cart is awful empty for so much time in there. I don't like what I'm seeing. Get back to work.
Lochnu grabs their gear before mentioning their suspicions about the cavern and the potential for spice beyond their access point to Orzval. Orzval chooses to enter with Lochnu to monitor whatever Lochnu finds. Orzval pushes into the access point first, with Lochnu's light in hand. Her voice booms behind her.
You 3 need to work faster and harder. If I come back out here and catch you slacking, you know what's coming for you.
Lochnu follows behind Orzval, turning around to look at the others with their fingers pinched over their nose in disgust at the idea of being squished in such a tight space with Orzval's stench.
I hope it's a vein,
they whisper loudly before disappearing into the dark behind Orzval. Gendy, Zek, and Butte make their way back to their access points to continue working. Butte starts to feel the exhaustion creep into his muscle as time slips on in the mine. He hasn't seen a single hint of a vein. He feels a small gust of cool air fill the space around him. He decides to sit down for a breather and leans his head back onto the bedrock behind him. He closes his eyes for what seems like a moment when the lamp at his feet flickers suddenly and slides backwards, flickering out. Darkness quickly surrounds him. He stands quickly, bumping his head against the bedrock. He's in total darkness. Damn, Orzval, no need to mess around to get your point across. He begins to feel his way out of the access point. The darkness is deafening, and with each step forward, his eyes search for a slight glow from their cavern ahead. He doesn't see one. The air is colder than he remembers, and he stumbles further. The smell he recognizes from earlier suddenly fills his respirator. He fumbles at his waistband with his left hand to look for his vibroblade to illuminate the space before him, when he feels the wall give way to emptiness with his right hand. He must be at the entrance to his access point. Lochnu? Zek? Gendy? What happened? He shouts into the darkness. There's no sound from either of them. Orzval is oddly quiet. This is either some sort of prank, or he dozed off longer than he thought. He remembers his access point is shallower, and he slows his breath to listen for the others in the darkness. Maybe he made his way out first. Butte reaches for his vibroblade again before a glow of red light begins to emerge from his right. An arm holding a flare shoots forward into the darkness as Gendy emerges. Butte can't make out much more, but suddenly he hears footsteps coming from Zek's passageway. Lights are out here too, Zek shouts. They crawl along the wall to each other, gathering just outside the entrance to where Lochnu disappeared with Orzval. A breeze rushed past them into the darkness ahead. How long has it been since we started the second round? Butte asks the others. Zek whispers back to them to be quiet. Something isn't right here. Orzval is way too quiet. They must have broken through into that cavern Lochnu was talking about. If they found spice, we would have been having orders barked at us by... And as if on cue, they hear a loud footsteps approaching fast from within the passageway before them. Gendy moves his arm forward to illuminate the passageway with his flare, and Orzval billows into the light, one of her hands tightly held at her throat as she gasps for air. She shoves Gendy aside to exit the passageway before suddenly falling back into the black. A gurgle of a scream escapes her throat as her arms grasp at the walls as she's gone again. Gendy and Zek move forward after her, and Butte quickly activates his vibroblade. The orange light is enough to illuminate the air around his arm and hands. The smell of blood fills the air. Gendy's flare begins to illuminate deeper into the passageway before they see Orzval is face down on the ground, her forearms struggling and grasping at the ground to pull her forward. A gurgling sound comes from her throat as she tries to scream. Butte freezes as he sees multiple eyes reflect in the red glow of the flare. A pair of giant pincers are on the back of her neck and thrusting her into the ground. Neither of them have time to turn to run before the flash of movement shoots from the dark to attack the flare that Gendy is holding. Butte barely makes out a smaller form than the one holding Orzval down. Gendy screams and the flare flies from his hand as the rest of them stumble and fall back to escape. They run. The gurgling screams of Orzval echo out behind them as the last blood is sucked from her body. Suddenly, a shock of sparks shoot from the devices on their wrist, flashing into the darkness. Zek stumbles to his knees as Gendy barrels forward. A fire burns into Butte's nerves, up into his chest as he grabs Zek's arm and pulls him forward. Orzval's body is fully slumped onto her datapad, sending lethal doses of electricity to their hearts. The sparks flicker against the wall around them as they burst out in the passageway into the dark cavern. Butte turns to look behind him and freezes in horror as his blade illuminates giant spiders as they swarm into the cavern. The sounds of hundreds of legs scratching along the walls is overwhelming, and mayhem ensues. Butte hears Gendy scream far ahead of them. My arm! My arm! Zek, too, is gone into the darkness ahead. The voltage from the device on their wrists continues to pulsate and shoot searing pain into Butte's chest. Butte begins to run after them into the dark, where he's jumped on from behind. His vibroblade clatters to the ground in front of him as the razor-like legs of a spider stab into his back as it crawls towards the electricity sparking from his wrist. Butte uses all of his strength to crawl forward to grab his vibroblade and plunges his blade into the spider's face before it can attack his wrist. It screeches in death as two more crawl for Butte's legs. He kicks one of them and stumbles up to run. He can't focus. The pain in his wrist is unbearable. As the device burns his flesh, he moves his blade forward and closer to the ground, trying to see, and realizes he can follow the cable back to the entrance door. A spider shoots from beneath him to grab his hand again. The skin is burning as the voltage tears through his body. He takes his knife and slashes at the creature, but misses. Butte realizes that the spider is going after the wrist device as it latches to his arm and bites at his flesh to hang on as he shakes his arm frantically. He screams in pain as venom fills his body. He smashes the spider off his arm as it falls to the ground stunned. Butte runs forward again, attempting to cut at the device on his wrist with his blade, but to no avail. It can't be removed without a key from headquarters. He's tackled to the ground again by another spider, larger this time. He rolls onto his back and shoves the blade between its pincers. It frees itself and flings the blade to the ground beside him. Butte has no other chance than to defend himself with his other arm, beating with his other fist into the spider as sparks flash into the pincers and the face of the spider from the device on his wrists. Butte's flesh is badly burned, and he can barely feel his hand. His chest convulses in pain. The spider's pincers begin to chomp at his hand, and arms grasping for the device. He grasps at his side for the blade. Does Butte A, continue to fight the spider, or B, realize he must use the vibroblade to cut off his hand?
Oh. I was just going to try to let the horrible monster that Zach's making me deal with, let it eat the device, then I won't be shocked anymore. I'll cut my hand off.
He realizes if he gets rid of the wrist device, he might just be able to get out of this alive. He cries out as he quickly uses the blade to cut above where the device is bound to his wrist. The blade cauterizes the wound instantly, and sparks cease as the device can no longer complete its circuit. It falls to the ground as the spider falls away from his arm still latched to his now lifeless hand. He shoves the blade into its body and flings it into the darkness as it shrieks. His body begins to shake uncontrollably. He fumbles his right hand into his chest pocket of his jumpsuit, hoping he hasn't lost the adrenaline shots they provide to workers for emergencies. He finds one quickly. The other crashes into his suit. He injects it into his thigh, feeling the adrenaline course through his body. He stops shaking and jolts up quickly, brushing the webbing from his chest in panic with his right hand. Butte is blinded with pain and fear. He realizes he is suddenly in silence. Where are the others? Zek? They must have gone in different directions. The spiders must have followed them. Before he can even think any further, he rises to his feet and stumbles forward along the cable lines to the darkness ahead, clutching his arms to his chest, his vibroblade firmly held in front of him. He has to get out. He cannot remember the directions Orzval gave them to get to this area. It's too dark to see the markings on the wall indicated in each zone. He hears skittering and freezes. He turns off his blade, surrounding himself again in total darkness. The spiders seem to be drawn to energy, and his blade is a risk. They pass by and around him. Overhead, but they don't stop to attack him. The last of the chattering of legs echoes into the passageway above them, the opposite direction of the lift. He realizes they must be hunting for the others. He has to make it to the lift. If he can get through those doors and close them behind him, he might be able to save everyone above and make it out alive. Hope bravens him as he begins to move forward, and again, his breath catches in his throat. Orzval still has the key card to open the doors. He has to turn back to get it from her body. He has to be smart about this. Using his senses of smell and his feet, he slowly starts to make his way in the opposite direction of the lift, tracing the large cable with his foot to guide him back to the cavern in darkness. He begins to feel what must be the start of the turn back into the last cavern when his foot kicks something and he trips, barely catching himself with his good hand along the wall as he drops his vibroblade. He tries not to panic and grabs down at where he thinks he dropped it. He feels what tripped him. Scared it might be a dead spider he killed before, he panics and grabs in another direction, thankfully finding his vibroblade. He decides to try and see what tripped him, and grabbing again feels what he recognizes to be an arm. His hands shake as he traces the arm to discover 3 fingers and a thumb. It must have been Gendy's. He can feel that the device is still attached, but like the other one previously attached to Butte, it is no longer active. He slides it from the ripped-off end of the arm and tucks it into his pocket, hoping to find a use for it later. He begins to feel the cool air pull him towards the cavern, and must be the cavern that released the spiders. His heart is racing, but he doesn't hear anything skittering about. Suddenly he feels the cable where it breaks into 4 smaller cables he plugged in earlier. Butte realizes the spiders must have drained the energy from the cables, which is why there was no power. He feels like a fool. What if the door wouldn't have opened with the key fob? He didn't remember seeing a manual crank to open it from the inside. Did the company know that this would happen? He shakes himself out of the haze of anxiety in his mind. He has no other choice but to try for the key fob. Maybe there is just enough power left in the generator for the door to open. He quickly locates the smaller cable to the left that leads to the passageway where they left Orzval's body. The darkness is suffocating, and the stench of blood and those creatures begin to make him nauseous. He fights the urge to vomit. The adrenaline shot won't last much longer. He realizes he has been without his mask since the attack. The spice was taking its effect on his mind, too. He has to move faster. Unsure of where the passageway ends or begins, his foot suddenly squishes into something. He freezes. Could there be a web here with the spiders waiting to entrap him? He nudges it again and feels it roll backward. It's not a web. He remembers that spiders sometimes wrap their food to save it for later. He kneels down closer to it and starts to peel at the substance. He chooses to use his blade again to illuminate what is now in front of him. He listens for a moment but hears nothing. He begins to separate what he now realizes is a cocoon of webs. He sees a leku. It's Lochnu. He feels a knot in his throat. There's nothing Butte can do for them now. They're gone. Next to Lochnu is another cocoon of webbing. The spiders must have dragged their bodies together. Please don't be Zek, Butte thinks to himself. This one seems larger, though. Too large to be Zek. He pulls the webbing and stench begins to overwhelm him. An arm gently falls out of the webbing. He holds back vomit into his throat. It's Orzval. Luckily, she is face up, which means he will be able to find her belt. He reaches through the blood-sticky cocoon with his blade, first discovering the keypad stuck tightly to her chest with blood and webbing. He manages to free it and shoves it into his pocket. He removes Gendy's device from his pocket and slides it over Orzval's fingers. He can't get it past her knuckles. Then he pulls at the webbing in the direction of her belt and gets to the keycard. He finds it quickly, but it's stuck and wrapped into her belt. He turns off his blade and sets it to his side before stifling a cry as he uses the wounded arm to brace the rotting body, still while he reaches his hand for the key to pull the keycard free. The momentum smacks his hand into the nearby wall. A resounding thud echoes through the cave. He shoves the free keycard into his pocket and grabs his blade, relighting it before he begins to run backwards along the passageway into the cavern. The sound of his hand hitting the wall and the light pulsating from his vibroblade alerts the spiders. They screech and start to swarm back towards the cavern and toward Butte. He runs towards the direction of the lift, pressing the button on the keypad, hoping they activate the device left on Orzval's body. Suddenly, the spiders begin to chase in the direction of her body, and he jams the buttons into the keypad to lock them into place, to use her dead body as a distraction. However, some of the spiders sense the energy from the keypad and jump toward him. He runs past them, slashing with his blade. He throws the keypad down another corridor, hoping they will chase after it. He doesn't bother to look back to see if it works, and he runs as fast as his body can carry him. He feels nothing now. He can only see the darkness ahead and feel the cable beneath his feet. He silently wishes with all of his heart Zek is already at the doors waiting. The orange light from his blade is dimming, but it's not long before his footsteps echo against the metal of the larger doors, separating him from the cavern with the lift. He's made it! The last of the adrenaline begins to take effect as he's running as hard as he has ever ran before. He begins to hear the chitter of the spiders behind him. The spiders are hot on his tail, but he makes it to the doors. His blade is a soft glow at this point. "Zek!" he shouts. No response. The chitter of hundreds of legs are closer now. It will be moments before they are all around him. He looks frantically to where he remembers Orzval using the key fob and slams the key card into the pad. The doors slowly grind open with the last of the power from the generator. A gush of air rushes past him. The spiders are all around him now. The chattering from their legs is deafening as they surround him. Suddenly, the doors stop, and there's barely enough room to squeeze through. A spider grabs Butte's leg with its fangs, and he screams in pain as it starts to drag him back through the door. This one's larger than the others before. He grasps the door with his arm and fights to pull himself through, kicking the spider in the face as the door suddenly grinds closed, with the locking mechanism reversing as it loses power, squishing the spider to death. He hears the other spiders, who tried to race in after him, flinging themselves in the door with loud thuds. The generator sputters to a stop. Butte is frozen on the ground in shock, his leg burning from the bite, and his entire body is limp from exhaustion. The sound behind the doors begin to quiet. He realizes how eerily quiet they have become. He drags himself into a sitting position, slouching forward to stare at the door. The cavern is dully illuminated with backup lights from the surface. Butte remembers the second lift Orzval called down before sending Bowden to the surface. He still can't move his body, but he has to move. He slumps onto his back and rolls over to start a crawl towards the lift. Before he gets too far, he remembers the training manual for the company explaining the power system that feeds the generator in the mine. It has a gas fuel line that converts into electricity through the generator. If he can cut the gas fuel line, he can ignite the chamber and explode the mine to stop the horde from reaching the surface. He crawls towards the generator and uses the last charge of his vibroblade to slash the fuel line. A hiss escapes the pipe, and a slightly sweet smell fills the air. Butte has little time before the cavern fills with gas to a point to where it's toxic to breathe. He starts to crawl back towards the lift, and he hears a very quiet knocking echo from the other side of the door. 3 short knocks, a pause, and another knock. Zek. Zek must have followed the commotion to the doors and hid out until the spiders swarmed back to consume the dead bodies in the mine. Butte pushes himself onto the all fours and starts to crawl towards the manual crank before he stops himself, realizing the crank in the door will attract the spiders again. He's so weak he can't even hold the door open long enough for Zek to get through. What if he doesn't have the strength to close it? How will they make it to the lift? Butte has a choice to make. Does he A, open the door to save Zek but risk the spiders getting in, or B, book it to the lift and get back to the topside to warn the company?
Considering that Zek is clearly Zach.
You don't gotta save me, man.
I'll open the door to save Zek.
All right, we're in the final now. He looks back at the lift and then forward towards the mechanical crank. He only has one hand. He shoves himself onto his feet and stumbles forward towards the crank. He only has to open it enough for Zek to get through. He uses his remaining hand to grasp the handle of the crank as tightly as he can and pulls it round and round. The door slowly opens with a screech. The sound squeaks through the cavern. Spiders screech from beyond. Hurry! Zek screams as one of his arms shoots forward between the gap. Butte puts everything he has left into pulling the crank until Zek's body falls through the open gap, and he begins to right himself onto his feet. But the spiders are also here, and they swarm through the crack from the ceiling of the cavern. Zek runs to Butte and lifts him under his arm, and they run to the lift. The spiders fall in troves as the ceiling of the troves from the ceiling, and they continue to swarm the crank in the door. Butte's body is giving out, and he's slowing Zek down. It's the only way. He shoves Zek forward with the last of his strength towards the lift. Zek screams, "Butte, no! It's the only way, go!" Butte uses the last of his energy to run towards the tool on the far wall. The gas is filling up the chamber to a point Butte is choking. Zek is to the lift now and holds the button down to keep the doors from closing. "Forget it, just get onto the lift!" But by the time he shouts this, he realizes that Butte has a flame torch in his hands. Zek releases the button to the lift as the spiders start to crawl along the shafts. Butte kicks at the spiders as they begin to swarm his legs. When the lift is out of sight, he ignites the flamethrower, and the spiders shriek as they burst into flames. One spider jumps onto his face and grasps at it with his fangs. He screams as blood gurgles from his mouth. He holds the flame open, and the gas in the chamber ignites, exploding the gas line and leading up along the shaft. The shaft begins to explode as the lift flies to the surface. The mine collapses around Butte, trapping the spiders, and Butte in his final moments. The moment of his dreams finally got him, but at least he saved his friend. The end.
Freaking knew it was Kessel the whole time. I knew it. Zach! How dare you? I knew it. As soon as you said
spider, you're like, do spiders, why not?
I did say that? Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, you're like, scare me with the spiders that I can't see. And I said, okay, he gave me permission.
Did I say that on the show?
No, you texted me. I was like, I think I'm going to do a choose your own adventure. And you're like, scare me with spiders I can't see. And I said, oh.
Well, and it's funny.
Okay, great.
I picked a a wolfman, because I was wondering if Zach was going to go legends powers where they can pseudo disappear.
I just gave you heightened senses of smell. All of the smelling stuff was because you chose that choice.
That's cool.
So
That's cool. Had I been a human, I imagine I just would have been me, and very easily killable.
I mean, it would have ended one of two ways.
Right on. Sounds like railroading, but that was fun.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Good. So choose your own adventures are big for me. There was the back in the day when we were kids, they used to do choose your own adventures for the original trilogy of Star Wars, and I basically almost bought the choose your own adventure for A New Hope from the public library in Denton, Texas, and it's so fun. Highly recommend it. The others, but that one's dope.
What I like about them is you die so many times, especially in the classic Choose Your Own Adventures. It's like, oh, I'm dead here. Well, I'm gonna go back and choose the different one. So that's why I had you die in the coffee, because I was like, well, we got to pay homage to that.
Yeah, that it's so easy just to constantly. All right. Well, speaking of death, okay, it's time for It's not Choose Your Own Adventure. It's just a short story, and again, I wrote this morning. So let's see if it makes any sense. Okay, so here we are. Star Wars short story, The Mortality Fallacy. There is a rhythm to life and death, a beautiful harmony. All beings return to the Force from whence they came. That is the way of things, the way of the Force. That is one of the many writings on life and death that I do not accept. That diary in particular, the Master burned. In a lifetime of medical studies and practice, there is one truth that I cannot accept or escape. All that the medical field treats are symptoms. No one treats the disease. No one has ever attempted to cure death. Until me. There is a particular passage in deep space called the Graveyard. It's frequented by refugee starships displaced by the war, none of which have enough air aboard for a proper burning ritual. When one of their passengers dies, they send him into space here. I watch from my cloaked ship as one of the massive refugee starliners deposits a coffin among the many here. I need it. I need a fresh one. Once the starliner is back in hyperspace, I decloak and send out my collector droid. I watch through the photoreceptor and read an inscription on the metal box intended to carry the body forever. A life well lived. Not yet. I take it back to my laboratory filled with other corpses, failed attempts, mistakes to learn from, mistakes the Master forces me to keep on display. I work because the Master commands me to. I work because the Master says he needs me to. I place my newest hope on the laboratory table, a large corpse, an alien species I have not yet seen, died of natural causes and recently. Good. I'm not too late. I work quickly, electrifying the body, harvesting blood. I put it into my machine to prepare a vessel, a new cloned body of this one. That's the easy part. It's the transfer of the spirit that hasn't worked yet. I am no sorcerer, not like the Master. I am a doctor. I am a scientist. The Master claims the transferring of essence between hosts is a task he can manage, but he needs other options in case of the worst events. He doesn't elaborate, but I'm no fool. The Master wants both of us to live forever. Within hours, the cloned body has grown to maturity. Still unconscious, it looks just as lifeless as the corpse next to it, but more alive, young, ready, my next and perhaps my last hope. I throw the final switch and reanimate the corpse. A horrible, delightfully unnatural howl of terror and pain floods the room from the formerly dead body. Fascinating. I am sure it's painful to be pulled back from the netherworld, but I wouldn't know. Its disgusting dead eyes snap open. The body is alive, but weak, confused, clearly in pain. Its eyes find me. A shrill, grating voice grinds out of it, "Please let me die." This is new. No. I say. I have more to learn. Through you, I will prove that your intelligence, memories, and spirit can be placed into another body. Or I'm not ready, and you'll go back to where you just were. I throw the final switch. The former corpse and clone vessel seize as the currents pass through both. The smell of burning flesh and blinding flashes of electricity fill the room. I cover my eyes as it reaches a fever pitch, and then it all goes dark. Then I see the clone stir and break its restraints as it sits up. I speak to it to study it, to calm it, but I see nothing behind its eyes. The former corpse watches the clone in horror and screams. Without a second's hesitation, the clone descends upon the original and strangles it. The clone whirls to me, and I go for my weapon too late as I am thrown against the wall and my world once again goes dark.
Explain your failure, Doctor.
The unmistakable voice of the Master wakes me. Before I'm completely conscious, I give him all of the details, a perfect recounting of the most recent attempt. I have no way of knowing if it worked. Was the clone a mindless monster? Or did it have all of the memories, thoughts, and feelings from its host and no ability to communicate? Why did it kill itself? Why did it kill its host? As I explain, the Master's hooded form beholds me emotionlessly.
I grow tired of waiting. I know a way to test your work. It will either succeed, or you will die.
That's when I notice that behind the Master there is a new body on the table. A new unconscious clone. My clone. Before I can voice my question, I am thrown against the table without being touched, next to my future vessel. The Master screams at me and begins the transfer with lightning from his hands that passes into my body and my clones. The Master howls over his lightning about my repeated failures, his impatience with me, and the consequences I now face. Racked with the most excruciating pain I can ever describe, I am unable to move, only to scream. Blinded by the lightning, choked by the smell of my own body burning, I watch as the clone stirs and comes to life. Before I knew that I had passed out, my eyes open once again, and I see myself talking with the Master. I hear my voice sharing my conclusions from my memories and my training, but it isn't me. It's my clone. I did it. My own creation of myself stands before me, but I'm still here. The Master turns to me and smiles.
You have done well, Doctor, but I have no need for two of you.
My clone watches stoically as the Master opens the airlock with a twitch of his hand, and I am plunged into the depths of space with no coffin. No one defeats death. So I hope that wasn't too depressing, but
cool.
That's what I wrote at 6 a.m. this morning.
That's cool.
It's like, that would be kind of messed up. What if it was clearly Palpatine in one of the many attempts at Project Necromancer with this universe's Dr. Frankenstein just stealing bodies and trying to figure out not how to reanimate something, but how to transfer like the consciousness into something else. Because Palpatine could probably just do it with the Force, but what if there was a way to try and do it fantastically and science-y?
That was good.
What's next, man? Hope it wasn't too messed up. I was writing that going.
That was cool.
This is kind of dark.
I was worried mine was too body horror.
It's just spiders, But now for something completely different. So in opening the Galaxy of Horror up to friends and guests, I didn't have that idea until like 4 days ago at the time of recording. I was like, all right, why don't we ask our friends to... I'm so stupid. Memeobi jumped on it. But for sure, we're going to throw it over to Memeobi. And like I said, for something completely different.
A little
horror
palate
story.
cleanser.
A palate cleanser, while still scary. Not really at all. But from the perspective of Max Rebo.
They say that music soothes the savage beast, but they never told me what to play when the beast signs your paychecks. I'm Max Rebo, the blue guy on the keys in the back of Jabba's palace, the one you didn't notice. That's fine. The less you notice me, the longer I live. Every day I wake up, check my keyboard for slime, and remind myself, play. Don't think. Don't listen. Because in Jabba's palace, you don't want to listen. There's always something happening down below the floorboard. Screams, laughter, the crunch of bones. It echoes up through the stone. I try to play louder. Snoodles sings a tune. Droopy McCool blows on that strange flute of his. We drown it out with rhythm, the only weapon we've got. The guards stomp and the dancers twirl and the monsters feed. And we just keep playing. Some nights I dream I stop. My hands just freeze. Then everyone looks and stares at me. Jabba and his guards and that cackling lizard on his shoulder. They all glare at me, like I just insulted the Hutt's mother. Then the floors open up, and I fall into darkness in the Rancor. A few weeks ago, Sai came up to me after a show, and she had this look in her eye. I'm about to do something extremely stupid, and you're coming with me. She leaned into my keyboard and gave me that fake smile of hers. You know, Max, she said, funny thing, it's called the Max Rebo Band, but I'm the one that everyone actually watches. She laughed. But there's something sharp underneath it. A little bit of jealousy, maybe? Or maybe just the resentment that I got my names in the big bright letters and she had to sing in the shadow of a hut. Then she dropped her voice real low. We can't live like this, Max. He feeds the monster if they sing off key. He made us play through a disintegration last night. She wasn't wrong. But what could we do? Quit? The last guy who quit is still permanently hung in the stage lighting. Then Droopy leaned in, a quiet, serious voice. We killed Jabba, he said. Just like that, no build-up. On the sail barge. Big gig coming up. We'll slip something in his drink. You just keep him entertained, Max. My stomach twisted like a sarlacc tentacle. I'm a musician, not a murderer. I just wanted to play my keys and get paid. But the more we talked, the more I saw it. The hope in their faces. Hope that we might play a song someday without screams underneath it. So I said yes. The next few days, the palace seemed different. Quieter. I almost believed it might work. Then the morning of the sail barge came. I woke up sweating, my head spinning. Something I ate, maybe blue milk, maybe guilt. I tried to stand, I couldn't. I missed the loading. I watched from my cot as the others loaded their gear, chatting and whispering about freedom, and I stayed behind. Then the engines roared to life. I dragged myself to the window. The suns were high, blazing against the dunes. I saw the barge drift off towards the dune sea, a bright dot of gold and rust. And then, a flash. A plume of fire bloomed in the distance, then nothing but smoke curling into the sky. I didn't hear music, didn't hear cheers, just silence. Everyone on that barge, gone. I sat there for a long time. I didn't know if I was relieved or haunted, maybe both. Maybe that's all that's left of me anymore. A scared little keyboard player who survived because he was too sick to show up. Now you'll find me playing small gigs around Mos Eisley, where the drunks don't bite and the only screams are for encores. People asked if I missed the old band. I just smile and say, they blew up big. But sometimes, when the lights dim and the crowd's quiet, I hear it again. That sound, a deep, wet laugh rolling through the dark, like a memory, like Jabba himself, chuckling from somewhere I can't see. And I keep playing, because if I stop, if I ever stop, I swear I'll hear that pit open again, and this time there won't be any music to cover it up. That's it. That's my story. There we go.
Hey y'all, Editor Matt here because we got one more Halloween short story. This one comes from our friend Imperial Remnant podcast. It is a murder mystery on a remote planet that the crew is very unprepared for. So here comes Imperial Remnant with Field Report Eclipa.
Chapter 1. Tyr Luro sits at the helm of his YV-929 freighter, soulless. His large amber eyes are transfixed at the swirl of hyperspace. The chestnut-colored fur on the back of his neck stands up as the triangular ears on the top of his head twitch. Morning, Nira. Dr. Nira Kess shuffles in, rubbing sleep from her eyes. It's unsettling when you do that. Tyr smirks. What, smell you coming? Nira drops into her worn chair, waking consoles. And stop saying I smell. Everything has a scent. It's not always bad. He checks the navicomputer. She rolls her eyes, smiling. Nira's in her late 40s. The console light softens the hard-earned lines in her face. Her dark hair is pulled up high. How far out are we? Minutes. I kept us in hyperspace a bit longer. You humans like your sleep. Playing all your hits this morning. Nira flips switches in a sequence. A small hollow projection of the planet Eclipa manifests. Humans stink, have bad eyesight, eat too much, and waste a quarter of our lives sleeping. How aren't Iluros running the galaxy then? Tyr just smiles. You two need a new routine. Kira Holt enters with 2 steaming cups of caf. Tyr nods at the cups. Enough of that, and you might catch up to my efficiency, he jokes. Nira takes a cup. Even with caf, 14 days awake can kill a human. Tyr considers this. Sounds like a design flaw. Darren Holt steps in next. None for me? Kira eyes him. Tyr cuts off the oncoming argument. Dropping out, now. The ship jolts. Kira and Darren stumble. I hate it when you do that, Darren grins. Playing all my hits, Tyr echoes. Eclipa fills their viewport. Nira zooms with the hollow. A colony is poised on top of a mountain. That's it. Maybe Biff wasn't lying. Darren shakes his head. I still don't trust that guy. He sells info for credits, Tyr says, his eyes on the controls. He's reliable enough, until he isn't. Nira checks the data readouts on her console. Atmosphere is breathable. She pauses, leaning closer to her readouts. It's odd. There's an extra element, barely detectable. It's like a pollen, maybe, but unregistered. Kira leans in. Something to worry about? Do we need the rebreathers? Nira hesitates, scanning again. No known pathogens, no toxins. Computer says we're clear. Rebreathers wouldn't last enough for the vice site extraction anyway, Tyr says. If you're going to stay on the ship, you gotta say so now. Darren and Kira trade a rare, calm look. I'm in, Kira says. Same, Nira adds. Yeah, let's get paid, Darren grins. Tyr smiles a toothy smile. Then let's get to work. Chapter 2. The speeder, loaded with mining supplies, moves its way up a series of switchbacks. The mountains are covered in multicolored trees and odd plants that look like cacti but are taller than the trees, sporting bright yellow colors. By the last rise that leads to the colony, the crew's panting for air. Through the gates, they find a small town, not what you would think of with a miner's camp. Prefab homes in mirrored rows, with a central building at the end. It's beautiful, Nira comments, almost too perfect. Except there's no life, Darren adds. Why was this abandoned? Tyr cuts the speeder's engine. His ears twitch and he sniffs the air. No sign of animals. Kira looks around. This place is all wrong. Let's get the rig up and running, Tyr says, getting the crew back on track. They show their agreement by walking on. Nira consults her datapad. Path down to the mine should be just beyond that central building. They check out the houses as they move down the street. Nothing is out of place. It would feel totally natural for a door to open and a family to come out into the beautiful sunny day. Near the town hall, they see a figure sitting on a bench. It looks casual except the head is slumped forward. Tyr clears his throat. Excuse me, he says in a friendly voice. He touches the figure on the shoulder and it slumps onto its side. The clothes are baggy over the gaunt remains. Nira rushes over to inspect the body. She consults the scanner on her datapad. No signs of trauma, no wounds. The scanner detects no poisons or toxins. By the rate of decay, they've been dead for a long while. Nira looks up from the corpse. You'd think with a person dying outdoors like this that rodents or birds would have scavenged it. Kira covers her mouth at this. He must have been left behind. Missed the last transport, she says, trying to make sense of things. Let's get the equipment running, Darren speaks up. I'll head back up here and give him a proper burial later. Tyr nods. That settles the matter. They walk away, Kira looking over her shoulder at the long, dead man. The crew falls into their respective roles without speaking. Darren stages the gear, Kira wires it. Tyr fits the tools, Nira runs redundant scans for safety. By the time they're done, dusk is upon them. Their labored breathing comes out in puffs as the temperature drops. The rig hums to life, providing merciful noise in the silence. Tyr breathes a sigh of relief and sits near the engine to steal some of its heat. You three get some sleep. I'll take the first shift. Kira and Nira unroll thin mats, lie down, but sleep doesn't come. They're cold, hungry, and exhausted. They lie still, willing sleep to take them, without answer. Darren grabs a shovel and heads back up the path for the man on the bench. It's full dark when he makes it back to the body. His flashlight beam finds the man, but he's no longer slumped over. He's sitting upright. The head slowly turns and faces Darren, staring with empty eye sockets. Darren starts and he drops his flashlight. He scrambles for it and puts the light back on the bench as quickly as possible. The body's back on its side, slumped over, just as it was when they left it before. He starts digging in the soft dirt nearby, keeping one eye on the body. Tyr pores over technical readouts in the early morning light. Nira gets to her feet behind him. I can't keep pretending that I'm going to be able to sleep. Tyr looks at his tired friend. None at all? She shakes her head. I thought I was dreaming a couple times. I saw people moving down the path, but I was never actually out, so I don't know what I saw. The two look to the empty path. Nira breaks the silence. Well, how's the rig doing? There is Vestite here. The machine's already extracting some, Tyr answers. Well, at least that's some good news, Kira says from behind them. I couldn't sleep either. Darren never came back, and I've been worried. They all understood that wasn't the reason for the lack of sleep, but no one said otherwise. Tyr stands. You two take over. I'll go find him. When he reaches town, he finds a fresh burial mound. He looks down the neighborhood street and sees the doors to all the houses are open. He goes house to house looking for his crewmate. Every single house is identical on the inside, right down to the furniture. After checking a dozen or so houses, he spots Darren. The man is leaving one of the houses with a giant bundle slung over his shoulder. Hey, check it out. Darren's a bit too chipper for the dark circles under his eyes. He beckons for Tyr to follow. Tyr follows Darren into another one of the houses. Darren has spent the night pillaging the houses and stockpiling all of the supplies into this one. I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd gather some supplies. Blankets, clothes, even some well-preserved food. Way better than our rations. You didn't sleep either, Tyr says. It's not a question. Darren shrugs. Let's get back to the rig. I want Nira to take a look at you. Tyr uses a hand to gently guide Darren. Darren jerks away. I'm fine. There's a tense beat before he softens. Sorry, I'm just tired. He drops the bundle and they head out. As they walk back to the rig, Darren speaks up again. Keep this between us. I don't want to freak anyone out. I kept seeing things last night. People moving. People that weren't there. First, the guy on the bench. Then others. In the houses, watching me from the windows. Tyr thinks it over. Darren shakes his head. You must think I'm crazy. If you were the only one, maybe. But Nira saw something too. Back at the rig, Kira and Nira are packing the first clear samples of the Vestite into containers. That raises everyone's spirits. Tyr cuts in. Darren, tell them what you told me. Darren looks at Tyr with fury. I told you not to mention it in front of Kira, Tyr insists. They all talk. Darren gives details on the figures that he saw. Then it's Nira's turn. It takes effort for them to form the sentences as they go on. When quiet starts to crawl in, someone fills the void with another wild theory. We have two options, Tyr says plainly when the previous conversation has run its course. The first one is, we stick to the plan, ride out the weirdness, and get paid. He sighs. The second option, pack it in now, cut our losses, and hope that there's another job somewhere else before too long. Tyr paces. It has to be unanimous, either way. You are all hired as my crew, but over the last year, I think of you all as family. Solace is running on fumes, but I'll go with what all of you think. Tyr's heartfelt confession hangs heavy in the air. Darren looks at the Vestite. The found family notion comforts him. Then his mind flashes back to seeing the corpse of the man stare at him with eyes that weren't there. Kira's shaky voice comes from behind them. I think of you all as family too. Her eyes linger on Darren. I know we need the credits. Let's just get it done. It has to be unanimous, Tyr reminds all of them. He looks at his new family, the weight of their decision pressing down on the small group. The hum of the mining rig serves as a constant reminder of their purpose. Nira checks over her datapad again. My gut says to run, but the data says that we're just tired. The Solace needs this. I need this. It's the only place I've felt comfortable since before the war. I vote we stay. Darren stands. Then I'm in too. And I have a plan. We can stay in the house that I filled with the supplies. We'll feel safer indoors. There's beds, blankets, food, even clean clothes. The rest murmur their agreement. Tyr puts a hand on Darren's shoulder. I'll stay with the equipment. I want the rest of you up at that house to get some sleep. You all just came through for me in a big way. I want to do this as a thank you. Besides, he forces a grin. I don't need the rest as much as you flawed humans. They give a weak laugh at Tyr's overused joke and head for the shelter. They feel better, safer. Darren was right about the shelter and the soft blankets. It'll help a lot. After a while of tossing and turning, he knows sleep won't come, and Darren's drawn back to the deserted town. Anything to distract him from the gnawing unease. He moves through the identical homes with a practiced efficiency. Near the farthest end of the town, there's one house that breaks the pattern. The curtains are drawn, and the manual release for the door is jammed. He breaks a window. The glass shattering rings out into the silent night air. Upon entering, he falls onto something unfamiliar. When he gets his light up, he freezes. Lined wall to wall, shrouded in white sheets, are bodies. He cautiously gets to his feet, not wanting to tread on any of them. His heart is hammering against his ribs. His hand trembles as he reaches for the corner of the closest sheet and pulls it back. The gaunt, undisturbed face of a Twi'lek stares back at him. He checks the rest of the house, finding nearly 30 corpses, not all of them adults. At that realization, he runs outside and gets sick. Kira tosses and turns in her luxurious bed. She's comfortable and warm, but sleep won't come. She hears the unmistakable sound of glass shattering. She rushes to her bedroom window and sees the other houses cast in cool blue light from the moon. A familiar figure runs down the street. It's her daughter, just as she looked before the sickness took her. Kira gasps, a sob catching at her throat. She bolts out the door without getting dressed. "Lily!" she cries into the cold night air. Lily turns off and runs into the woods behind the houses. Kira chases. Nira's staring up at the blank ceiling of her room. Visions of the siege of Inuyusu play out vividly. She sits up and shakes her head, trying to push back the memory of the young men and women she was unable to help in that bloody encounter. She hugs her knees and whispers, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." She hears glass shattering and looks to her window. Standing just on the other side is a rebel pilot with scorch marks down the entire right side of his body. She scrambles off the bed and falls onto the cold floor. She hears the door across the hall slam open and light footballs run out of the house. When she looks back to her window, the dead rebel is gone, and Kira's running down the street, calling out for someone. Nira suits back up and heads into the cold night air. Tyr keeps vigil at the rig. He busies himself doing math on Vestite counts that won't matter at all if they die here. The hum of the rig provides some comfort as another dawn approaches. His ears twitch. He hears a voice he hasn't heard in decades. "Shiren, are you there?" His mother's voice. She was the only one who called him Shiren. He stands and puts all his attention into his hearing. There is no voice, but he hears glass shattering. Forgetting the rig, he sprints to town. Tyr runs until he sees Darren and Kira sitting on the steps to one of the houses. Darren's skin is pale and clammy. The circles under his eyes are dark. Kira's flush. She's been crying. Her skin's scratched and cut up. "Are you two okay?" Tyr crouches in front of his friends. Darren blinks, like he's only now seeing Tyr. "Yeah, just shaken." He jerks a thumb back. Bodies. A lot of them. Tears start to form down his face. He shakes his head and buries his face in his hands. Tyr gently grabs Kira's chin and examines her cuts. "I'm okay," she answers, not pulling away. She doesn't offer more, and Tyr doesn't need it. Tyr sees Nira through the house's open door. He enters cautiously. Even with Darren's warning, it's a shocking sight. Nira's going from body to body, scanning them into her data pad. "You okay, Nira?" he calls. He startles her. "Tyr, who's down at the mine? Forget the criffing mine. What is this?" She meets him in the hall. They embrace in a long, comforting hug. The group reconvenes outside. Nira gives her report. The bodies are all the same. No signs of trauma, violence, poisons, or toxins. It doesn't appear that any of them starved or were dehydrated. They all just stopped. "We're leaving," Tyr states. "We're going to get the speeder and ride it back to the Solace. Forget the gear. We need to be off this cursed planet now." No one argues. They help each other down to the speeder, leaving all of their supplies and personal effects where they lie. They start mounting into the speeder. Darren pulls the plug out of the generator, and the sound that once brought them comfort dies. The only extra thing that's taken is the Vestite they already packaged. Within the hour, the Solace lifts off. They break Atmo, and Tyr has the Navicomputer calculate a jump to the nearest Republic hospital. The swirling vortex of hyperspace, usually a monotonous backdrop, feels like a cleansing river, washing away the uneasiness of Eclipa. They're free. Or so they thought. Chapter 3. Aboard Solace, everyone assumes normal will snap back. Everyone wants sleep, even Tyr. Kira and Darren retreat to the same bunk, putting past wounds behind them. I don't want to be alone," Nira looks into Tyr's eyes. He says nothing, just opens the door to his chambers and allows her to enter. They collapse into his bunk, leaning on each other for comfort. They close their eyes, expecting sleep to come and help put the whole ordeal behind them. A child's laugh sings out. Kira's eyes snap open. "Did you hear that?" Darren's still fully awake. "No, what was it?" Kira's mouth works once. "Lily." Tears come. Darren gathers her in a long hug. Over her shoulder, the benchman sits in the cabin chair. Darren gets Kira up, and they stumble into the hall. Tyr hears them moving. He gets up out of bed. The door hisses open. Darren and Kira pinball off the bulkheads toward him, hollow-eyed. "It followed us," Kira rasps through sobs. Nira screams from Tyr's room right behind them. Her 3 crewmates turn their attention to her. From her perspective, the 3 crewmates are 3 dead rebel pilots closing in on her. One approaches, reaching a hand out. Nira's convinced that that hand will strangle her. She kicks the dead pilot hard in the chest with a scream. The hallucination fades, and Tyr is leaning in the doorway, rubbing where she kicked him. Tyr, I'm so sorry. After they calm each other down, they sit around the ship's mess table. Nira, despite her own exhaustion, analyzes their symptoms. The ship has far better equipment than her datapad. The persistent sleeplessness, the vivid personal hallucinations, the growing paranoia. It's not just fatigue. There's something else, something biological. She scans them, cross-references data, and scans them again. She can feel the solution to the problem right in front of her, but her sleep-deprived brain can't get into gear to work it out properly. Her eyes keep closing and she starts back to the world without ever having actually fallen asleep. Every time she cycles like this, the phantoms are closer. She's about to give up when a chilling realization hits her. That barely detectable, unregistered element that we picked up on approach. It's not a pathogen or a poison or any kind of pollen. It has to be a spore. She indicates a slight blur on Kira's brain scans, a microscopic organism that attaches itself to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus. We must have inhaled them. She flips to the same scan of Tyr's brain, and the blur is there too. If you didn't know what to look out for, it wouldn't show up as anything more than this blur. This is the part of the brain that regulates most beings' sleep-wake cycle. It's not killing us, not directly, but it is systematically dismantling our ability to rest, which is slowly driving us mad and can lead to major body mechanics shutting down. That's why those poor miners all died with no obvious symptoms, Tyr adds, his brain catching on first. You said it was just like they stopped, and it's because they did. Kira pleads, can you fix us? No, not with what I have here, Nira says regretfully. Her discovery gives her a little pep of energy and some clarity. I can try to rig a cortical pacer that will give us a jolt and keep us going, but that's not a long-term solution. We need to save it for when we're on the brink, and we can't trust ourselves to know when it's time. Strap yourselves into the crash seats. We can't be running around doing who knows what, losing our minds, Tyr commands. Nira's fast at work on the cortical pacers. Kira and Darren move to their seats. They strap themselves in and hold hands. Nira is the last to enter and hands Tyr 4 devices. One for each of us. Don't double up on someone. I don't know how the body will react to too much. All strapped in, they lean on each other for moral support. They keep the madness from taking them by sharing stories, ones that they've experienced together, ones from their past, and ideas for a future, all of them included. Darren and Kira talk openly about Lily for the first time in a year. Nira confides in this new family about her experiences during the Galactic Civil War. Tyr shares memories of his mother. These are the only 3 beings in the galaxy who he confides in. By the time they arrive above New Holstis, they haven't had to use a single cortical pacer. Republic medroids and surgeons use Nira's scans. They pull the spore samples, they work on countermeasures, and dose the whole crew. The crew's vitals stabilize, and their minds stop buzzing. When the rapid-fire medical procedures are done, they ask for 1 room and 4 beds. There's nothing left to say. They can feel, for real now, the quiet pull towards sleep. Kira goes first, a calm line at her mouth. Darren follows, watching her breathe. Nira fades into sleep as she checks over her own vitals. Tyr studies his family one by one as he closes his large amber eyes. As sleep finally finds him, his ears twitch. Shirin, are you there?
And we're back! Hope you're having a great day and a great Halloween. And be safe, be smart, and may you be safely scared.
Yeah.
How about that?
And if you want to play Kessel Run, which is the name of my short,
Oh my gosh.
we might make it a series of videos to where you can also choose your own adventure and choose the different options, because there were different options that
branching
we did not
paths.
get to. Branching paths, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you would like to receive it now, before we do that, you can email us, forceofothersradio@gmail.com, and I'll send it over to you. I got it in a document, and you could play along. Otherwise, you should email us with questions and or comments and or ways to get involved with the podcast. We answer mailbag questions. We do different fun things, interviews, and such. So email us at forceofothersradio@gmail.com. Like and hit that notification bell if you are on YouTube, or subscribe to us and leave a 5-star review if you are in any other podcasting form. We greatly appreciate you joining us for this Galaxy of Horror, this special spooky episode that we love doing. Next year, we're going to open it up sooner to our friends and have a lot more stories. But yeah, we'll probably still do the scariest thing in Star Wars because that's really fun.
Yeah.
And we got some other fun stuff coming throughout the second half or the last 2 months of the year.
Yeah.
We're nearing the end of the year. We got some holiday stuff coming your way. And like Matt said, be safe out there. Have fun, but have fun responsibly. Anything else you want to add before we send them off?
Oh, just something I was thinking about today is for sure something that we're going to do when we get to the week that Force Awakens came out. There will be a Force Awakens commentary track in honor of its 10th anniversary. I don't know who the guest is going to be yet, but we'll figure that out. It'll be me, Zach, and another human. Probably Lance, but I don't know. We'll see. And all that to say, like we said before, have a wonderful Halloween. To quote the panel that I saw this costume in, nobody's dying today, pal. But in the meantime, remember, the faults of others will be with you.
Always.
No one defeats death.
Others thought it unkind to start today's video. One last time.